Matthew Rasmussen, and in this presentation I'm going to walk you through the progression of classical conditioning. So in the last presentation I described what classical conditioning is by describing the key terms. Well, now you're really going to understand what it is, and that we're going to understand how an individual goes through and classically conditions an organism properly. Now, in classical conditioning, there's three separate stages. The first stage is the before conditioning stage. The second stage is the during conditioning stage. And the third and final stage is the after conditioning. And conditioning means learning. So the first stage is before learning. Second is while the organism is learning. And the third is after learning has taken place. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these three stages right here on my trusty whiteboard, and things will become apparent. So what I'm going to write is before. So again, before means before conditioning has occurred. Now in the before stage, what the researcher or what the scientist or what you at home is doing is you're generating a baseline. Okay? You're getting a baseline here. You're making sure that the neutral stimulus doesn't do anything that you don't want it to do. Okay? Another thing you're doing is that in the end, let's pretend that you want the organism to salivate. Well, you need to make sure that that organism is going to be able to salivate to something, because you're going to need to use that during the conditioning phase. And that'll become apparent in a moment. So, first things first, you need to present the organism with the neutral stimulus. And the NS is the neutral stimulus. That's an object. In this case, it's a bell. You present a dog a bell, it's going to elicit nothing. Maybe that dog will turn its head, kind of orientate to where the sound is coming from, but it's definitely not going to salivate. And that's the key, is that it doesn't do what you want it to do. The neutral stimulus elicits, the arrow means elicits, essentially brings forth a response of nothing. Okay? So that's key. Second key is that you also present the organism with the unconditioned stimulus. If I was to present a dog with an unconditioned stimulus, that's the food, that dog's automatically going to salivate. So again, we have the arrow, that means elicits, and a stimulus will always elicit a response, and that is going to be the unconditioned response, that is the salivation. So I present the dog the food, it's going to elicit salivation. And that's good too, okay? These things are both good. Why? Because now we have the mechanism by which we can teach the dog to salivate to the tone. Okay? In this case, the bell. So, this is the before phase. You need to do this originally. Now we're going to move on to the second phase. I'm going to erase this all. And this is the during conditioning phase. And the during conditioning phase is essentially one thing that an individual is doing. That is simply pairing the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus. So the NS with the US. That's automatically going to bring on a UR. So let's write this down. Really easy. You present the NS first. Okay? The NS first. Maybe you wait a second or 2 seconds. And there's many different techniques to use. The colon stands for followed by the US. So the neutral stimulus followed by the unconditioned stimulus. And what is that going to do? Well, you need the arrow there to elicit. That's going to elicit an unconditioned response. Again, we present the bell, wait 2 seconds, present the organism with the food, and that's automatically, the food is automatically going to elicit a response. Now, you may be able to do this one time. Okay, there's some aspects in the world where you only need one pairing to successfully learn. However, many things require multiple pairings. So you would do this multiple times. You do this over and over again, present the neutral stimulus and then the unconditioned stimulus response. Neutral stimulus, unconditioned stimulus, response. You can do this many different times. Now the cool thing is here is this is during conditioning. This is the learning phase. So what the organism is going to start doing is they're actually going to start salivating to the neutral stimulus. Once they start salivating to the neutral stimulus, once you present that bell and then they salivate before the food has arrived, then you know learning has taken place. Okay? You may want to go on another time or two to ensure that learning has taken place. So, once this has occurred, we can move on to stage 3. Okay, and stage 3 is the after conditioning. After conditioning. So we have after conditioning. What we have here is essentially the same thing as the during phase, but the terms switch and we don't have the US. The NS now changes to the CS. The conditioned stimulus, this is separate now. It used to be neutral stimulus, meaning that it had no meaning. Now this stimulus has some sort of meaning in that it will do something to the organism. So the conditioned stimulus is not followed by anything, but it essentially will elicit a response, and that response, however, is a conditioned variety. It is a learned response. So what we have is the conditioned stimulus, the bell, will, after successful pairings, will elicit a salivation. And that salivation isn't a natural salivation, that is a learned salivation. So what we have is conditioned stimulus elicits the conditioned response. So essentially this after phase is just like the during, but the term switches, the US essentially drops out, and the UR changes to the CR. Okay, you see how that works? So it's very, very simple. Those are the 3 stages. Again, the first stage is the before conditioning stage. The second stage is the during conditioning, and the third is the after conditioning. So by the end, you can essentially make an organism salivate to your neutral stimulus, whatever that neutral stimulus is, right? Well, I hope this helped. In the next series of slides, I'm going to provide an example on, like a real-world example for you to better understand this. Tune into that. Take care and have a great day.